There is a fact about the human brain that most people never hear. The brain has no pain receptors. None. Not a single one. The organ that processes every sensation your body has ever felt cannot feel a thing done to itself. Which means that for certain operations, tumors near speech centers, lesions near the motor cortex, surgeons remove part of a person's brain while that person is awake. Talking. Counting backward. Saying the names of objects on flashcards. While a scalpel moves through their skull. Neurosurgery is the only field where the most complex surgery in medicine is sometimes a conversation. You are going to spend 19 years learning to have that conversation. Not the one with the awake patient, the deeper one. The one about what you can do and what you cannot. The one that happens at 3 a.m. in a hallway after a surgery that ended wrong. The one that starts at 18, in a biology lecture, and does not end until you are in your late 30s and finally know what you actually signed up for. Everyone already knows neurosurgery is hard. That is not the interesting question. The interesting question is this. What does a person become after 19 years of doing the hardest thing? What survives the training, and what doesn't? Who walks out of level 10? And how much do they still recognize themselves? Level 10 answers. But you have to earn the answer. This is the climb to neurosurgeon. 10 levels. 19 years. And one truth at the end that nobody mentions at the beginning, because at the beginning, you wouldn't have believed it anyway. Level 1. The premed. You are 18 years old. You tell your parents you want to be a neurosurgeon. Your father pauses. He is doing the arithmetic nobody does at orientation. 4 years undergrad. 4 years medical school. 1 year internship. 6 years residency. 2 years fellowship. The answer is 17. 17 years of training after high school before you hold a scalpel with your name on the OR schedule. Your father reaches the number and then he says, the way fathers who believe in you say things. Okay. What do you need? What you need, academically. A GPA above 3.7. Research experience. Clinical hours. Strong letters from professors who remember your name. And a score on an exam called the MCAT that we'll reach in level 2. A score that places you in the top 9% of everyone who takes it. You are 18. These are words. They have not become real yet. Your freshman year is biology, chemistry, calculus, and a writing seminar you'll forget entirely by spring. You study hard. You finish with a 3.6 GPA. You needed a 3.7. You do not sleep well in January. Here is the number about pre-medicine that the brochure excludes. Of every 100 students who declare pre-med on the first day of freshman year, 20 will make it to a medical school acceptance letter. 20. Not because 80 of them couldn't. Because the track is not designed to develop you. It is designed to see who remains after it tries to remove you. It is a filter running at full power for 4 years. And the filter is not measuring intelligence. The filter is measuring something closer to stubbornness, the particular variety that does not look like stubbornness. That looks instead like a person who simply hasn't considered quitting as a realistic option. You are one of the 20. You don't know that yet. But level 2 is where you start to find out. That's level 1. Level 2. The MCAT. You are 21 years old. And you are about to spend 6 months doing something that has very little to do with medicine and everything to do with how you perform under sustained compounding pressure. The medical college admission test is 7.5 hours. 4 sections. Scored 472 to 528. The national average is 500. A competitive neurosurgery pipeline needs 515 or above, which is the 91st percentile. Here is what 91st percentile means in practice. Imagine every person who has taken the MCAT this year standing in a line sorted by score. You need to be 9 people from the front of that line. The 90 people behind you, each of them has a medical school application. Each of them studied just as hard as you did. 9 from the front. You study 320 hours over 20 weeks. 9 practice exams. Scores: 506, 509, 509, 511, 511, 512, 513, 513, 514. The last one, 2 weeks before the real exam. 514. You stop practicing. There is nothing left to squeeze. The morning of the real exam, oatmeal. Gray t-shirt, same one you wore on every practice run. Small superstitions. The kind only make sense to people standing inside a fear they can't fully name. 7.5 hours later you walk out of the testing center into an afternoon that looks exactly like it did this morning. Same parking lot. Same sky. The world continued without interest while you sat inside it and tried to prove something. 3 weeks later, the score, 514. One acceptance letter, from one of the 22 schools you applied to. You accept before you finish reading it. Then they tell you the cost. Not the tuition, the total. Tuition, fees, housing, books, equipment, 4 years, $340. You are 21 years old. You sign for $340 before you see the inside of a hospital. That $340 will compound at 7.1% per year while you train. By the time you are allowed to pay it back, it will be $410. You will finish paying it off at 53 years old. Most people, reading those numbers, would reconsider. You don't reconsider. And here is the thing you won't understand until level 9. The fact that you didn't reconsider is not a sign of courage. It is the first symptom of the specific personality type that neurosurgery selects for. Level 3 is where you find out what that personality type costs before it pays anything back. That's level 2. Level 3. The first year. You are 23 years old. On day 4, a professor places your team in front of a human body covered in a white sheet. He says, "You may begin." 4 people stand around the table. 40 seconds of silence. There is a smell that formaldehyde cannot entirely cover. Not decay, something more neutral than that. The smell of a person after the person is gone. This body was donated. The person who owned it decided that the last useful thing they could do with themselves was teach you something. That is a form of generosity with no equivalent in any other field. You do not forget it. The ones who do become efficient surgeons. The ones who don't become good ones. Medical school years 1 and 2 cover more material than your entire undergraduate education. Simultaneously. Gross anatomy, histology, biochemistry, physiology, pharmacology, microbiology, pathology, neuroscience, all tested, all required, all running at once. Here is the analogy that actually fits. Imagine you signed a lease on an apartment, a very good apartment. One that will genuinely change your life. The lease says you can move in after 4 years. But the rent starts now. 10 hours of study per day. 6 days a week. A $340 price tag running in the background. And a pass-fail exam at the end of year 2 that determines whether you keep the apartment or lose everything you paid. That is the deal of year 1. You are paying, in full, in advance, for something you are not yet allowed to have. By November you have developed a skill that appears on no licensing exam, the ability to absorb information while technically unconscious. Some call it efficiency. Medical school calls it passing. At the end of year 2, USMLE Step 1. 9 hours. The most important exam in your career to this point. Failing means repeating a year, or leaving medicine entirely. Passing means you are permitted to move to the part of medicine that involves actual patients. Passing is not celebrated. It is expected. You pass. You are 23. You owe $168 before interest. People your age are buying their first cars, going to concerts, texting about things that happened last weekend. You are in a basement at midnight memorizing cranial nerve pathways by number because on the day a patient presents with a sixth nerve palsy and double vision, the number needs to come out of your hands before your brain catches up. The fire hose is still on. Level 4 is where you find out you've been training for the wrong thing this whole time, and what you're actually building toward instead. That's level 3. Level 4. The rotations. You are 25 years old. And this is where I have to reframe everything you think you know about why people become neurosurgeons. If you ask medical students why they want to go into neurosurgery, they will tell you, to help people, to save lives, to work on the most complex organ in the human body. All of this is true. It is also true of the people who become pediatricians and psychiatrists and family medicine physicians and oncologists, people who, by most measures, have more daily human contact and receive more daily gratitude than any neurosurgeon alive. So what actually separates the neurosurgeon? Not compassion. Not intelligence. Those are table stakes in every specialty. What separates the neurosurgeon is a specific, almost pathological intolerance for the limits of what medicine can do, combined with an equally specific willingness to take personal responsibility for pushing past those limits with your own two hands. Every other specialty can, at some point, say, "We've done what we can." Neurosurgery is the specialty that walks into the room where other specialties stop and keeps going. This is either inspiring or terrifying depending on which side of the operating table you're on. And for the people who choose it, that line is actually interesting. That is the tell. Your third-year rotations cycle through every specialty: surgery, medicine, pediatrics, psychiatry, OB, emergency. Each one shows you who you are not. Then, 2 weeks on neurosurgery. You arrive at 5 a.m. You present a patient at 6 a.m. rounds, a 56-year-old with a glioblastoma. An aggressive brain tumor, grade 4. You know the research. You know the median survival after surgery is 15 months. You know that 15 months is the median whether the surgery happens or not. You know this, and you still watch the attending choose the surgery. And afterward, when you ask why, when 15 months is the answer regardless, the attending says 4 words: quality of those months. This is the reframe that changes everything. Neurosurgeons do not primarily work in survival rates. They work in what the time remaining looks like. A glioblastoma patient who has surgery does not live longer, statistically. But they spend more of that time as themselves, speaking, thinking, knowing who their children are, rather than being compressed and confused by a tumor that was left to grow unchecked. You are buying quality, not quantity. And that distinction, between saving a life and improving the time that's left in it, is the distinction that will run through every major decision you make for the next 19 years. You choose neurosurgery, not to be exceptional, because you cannot walk away from that distinction. 225 residency positions. More than 300 qualified applicants. The algorithm runs in March. You find out on a Friday. You won't sleep until Monday. That's level 4. Level 5. Match day. You are 26 years old. The National Residency Matching Program is an algorithm. It does not negotiate. You submit a ranked list of programs. Programs submit ranked lists of applicants. The algorithm runs overnight on a Wednesday. It outputs a name and an address. That address is where you will live and train for the next 7 years. You are sitting in a folding chair in a rented ballroom. 240 students. Parents in the back. Someone is already crying and the envelopes aren't open yet. Medicine is the only profession that holds a ceremony to tell people where they will work. There are no envelopes on Wall Street. No one in the law firm ballroom. Medicine has always understood something the other fields don't. That the moment of commitment deserves to look like a moment of commitment. The Casio reads 11:58. Then 11:59. Noon. University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. Department of Neurological Surgery. You matched. You call your father. He says what he always says. Okay. What do you need? You need to understand what you just agreed to. 7 years of residency. Minimum. In those 7 years, 1 in 2 of the people who started residency in a relationship will not be in that relationship by the time they finish. Not because the training destroys love, because it consumes time, and time is what love runs on. You know this going in. Everyone does. It does not change the envelope. 93 days until your first shift. You spend the first of those days celebrating. The next 92 doing arithmetic about the 7 years ahead. The kind of arithmetic your father taught you, not pessimistic. Practical. Practical means you know what's coming. You go anyway. That's level 5. Level 6. The intern. You are 27 years old. Your salary is $62 per year. You work 80 hours per week. That is $14.90 per hour. The person who drove you from the airport when you moved to Pittsburgh earns more than that. And he stopped working at 11 p.m. This is not a complaint. It is arithmetic. The arithmetic every resident does once and then stops doing because it doesn't help. Intern year, PGY1, is not neurosurgery. It is general surgery in medicine. You rotate through floors managing patients. You write orders. You get paged 50 times per shift. You are the bottom of a hierarchy that is not cruel but is real. And at 3 a.m. when the pager goes off for the 49th time and you haven't eaten since noon. Real is the only thing the hierarchy is. They call this building the foundation. This is accurate. Foundations are underground, invisible, and nobody ever thinks about them once the building is standing. They are also what everything above depends on. February. Night call. A 22-year-old comes in by ambulance. Subarachnoid hemorrhage. Ruptured aneurysm. She is unconscious. The neurosurgery attending is called in. You follow. You stand at the edge of the OR for 4 hours and watch him navigate to a vessel smaller than a strand of spaghetti inside her brain and repair it without touching anything around it. At 6 in the morning, she is in the ICU. Her pupils respond to light. Her brain is intact. The attending goes home. You walk outside into a February morning you haven't earned through sleep. The Casio reads 6:11 a.m. Cold enough to see your breath. You stand there and you think about the 22-year-old and you think about the attending's hands and the gap between his hands and yours and how many mornings like this one it takes to close that gap. And then you go back inside. Not because you're not exhausted. Because the 22-year-old with the repaired aneurysm is in the ICU. And someone needs to write her morning orders. And that someone is you. The danger in intern year is not quitting. Quitting is loud. You'd hear it coming. The danger is subtler. It is the slow, unannounced narrowing of your world down to this building, this schedule, this pager. You don't notice it happening. You notice it afterward, when you try to remember what Friday night used to feel like and can't. That's level 6. Level 7. The resident. You are 30 years old. Year 3. They hand you the scalpel. Your first craniotomy is a Monday morning in October. Patient. 58 years old. meningioma pressing on the frontal lobe. The attending has performed this procedure 307 times. You have watched it 19. She steps back just far enough to let you lead. Close enough to stop anything that goes wrong. Your hands, she says. You make the incision. The attending does not speak for 40 minutes except twice, good, and once, slower. When the tumor is out and you are closing, she says, not bad. In surgical training, not bad is a standing ovation. You will understand this by year 4. By year 4, you are operating 4 days a week. Craniotomies, spine fusions, vascular reconstructions. The cases grow harder. Your hands grow quieter. There is a specific kind of confidence that arrives without announcement somewhere in year 3 or 4, not the dangerous kind that ignores what it doesn't know, but the useful kind that knows where the edges are and works right up to them. Here is the year 4 number. The one from the research. Surgical residents who entered training in relationships have a 54% separation rate before they finish residency. More than half. Not because surgeons are bad partners. Because presence is not a feeling, it is a physical fact. 80 hours a week in the hospital is 80 hours a week, not somewhere else. You know people in that 54%. You understand their side completely. You also understand the side that chose to stay. Both are rational. Both are painful. The residency does not ask your opinion about which one you should be. It simply continues. By year 5, you are a different person than the one who held the retractor in year 1. Better with your hands. Narrower in your world. You have traded something wide for something deep, and the trade is becoming permanent. Level 8 is where you find out what the depth is worth. Not financially. As a surgeon. That's level 7. Level 8. The chief resident. You are 32 years old. Year 6. Something has transferred without ceremony. The interns page you the way you once paged the attendings. The junior residents watch your hands the way you watched the attendings' hands. You are, inside the hierarchy of this hospital, almost the thing you came here to be. This year you operate on your first pediatric case. An 8-year-old girl. Posterior fossa tumor. Aggressive. Her parents have read every paper available on her diagnosis. They know the median survival is 14 months. They ask you, across a conference table, her father's hands flat on the wood, not shaking, whether you can save her. Here is what 6 years of residency has taught you to do with that question. Not answer the question that was asked. Answer the question that needs to be answered. The question they asked is, can you make her live? The answer is complicated and statistical and outside your control. The question that needs to be answered is, can you give us more of her? While she is still herself? You tell them what surgery can do. You tell them what it cannot. You tell them you will do the best operation that can be done for her. Her father nods. Her mother is quiet. You go scrub in. There is no residency course called How to Sit Across from Two Parents and Tell Them the Truth About Their Daughter's Life. There is just year after year of doing it, each time with slightly more steadiness. Slightly less of the thing that shakes in you when you say the words. The shaking doesn't stop. You just learn to speak through it. This is also the year you learn the thing no one leads with about neurosurgery. The most important skill is not knowing when to operate. It is knowing when not to. The aneurysm that is watched instead of clipped. The tumor that is biopsied rather than resected. The spine that is managed conservatively instead of fused. These decisions are harder than any surgery, because the surgery is visible and the restraint is not. You don't get credit for the operation you didn't perform. The patient doesn't know what you protected them from. Medicine calls this conservative management. After 6 years, you know it is the hardest thing in this building. You apply for fellowship in September. Cerebrovascular surgery, blood vessels inside the brain. Aneurysms. AVMs. Strokes. You match to your first choice. That's level 8. Level 9. The fellow. You are 34 years old. Your salary is $82. After 15 years of postgraduate training, 4 years undergrad, 4 years medical school, 7 years residency, you earn $82,000 per year. The debt, with compounding interest, is now $410. You are not thinking about the debt. You are thinking about the aneurysm. This is the year the surgeon you are going to become arrives. Not with drama. With repetition. A cerebrovascular fellowship at a high-volume program means 300 aneurysms per year on service. You personally scrub on or lead 160 cases over 2 years. The margin for error in vascular neurosurgery is measured in fractions of a millimeter. The consequences are measured in everything. There is a moment around month 7 when you understand what mastery feels like, and it is nothing like what you imagined at 18. At 18, mastery looked like certainty. At 34, mastery feels like knowing exactly where uncertainty lives. Knowing its address. Respecting it enough not to get close without a reason. A patient arrives in month 9. 41 years old. Marathon runner. 2 kids. Unruptured middle cerebral artery aneurysm. 11 millimeters. The research recommends surgical clipping. Your attending presents it as your case. You clip the aneurysm. 48 minutes. Post-op angiogram. Complete occlusion. The vessel is open. The aneurysm is gone. The patient wakes up and asks if she can still run Chicago in October. You tell her that depends entirely on her physical therapist and her own stubbornness. Marathon runners typically have enough of both. She runs it in 4 hours and 12 minutes. You will know this because her daughter sends a card to the hospital's neurosurgery department 8 months later. Your name is on the envelope. You read it in a parking garage at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. You will not meet her again after the 6-week follow-up. The person whose life changed completely that Tuesday morning in the OR goes back to their life. You go back to the next case. This is the architecture of the work. Not indifference. Architecture. End of year 2. 3 job offers. Academic neurosurgery programs. Salary range. $640 to $790. You choose based on case volume. ICU quality. Research infrastructure. The thickness of the OR door and how quiet it is when it closes. 19 years in, and those are the things that matter to you. You chose well. That's level 9. Level 10. The attending neurosurgeon. You are 37 years old. Your first case as attending is a Tuesday morning in September. Same month as the biology lecture 19 years ago. Different room. Different hands. Same watch. Here is the truth that level 1 does not tell you. You do not save lives. No physician does. Not in the way the word save implies. Not permanently. What physicians do is buy time. The difference between a good neurosurgeon and the alternative is not life versus death. It is this. How long? And at what quality? And who does that person get to be before the clock runs out? Glioblastoma, the most aggressive common brain tumor, has a median survival of 15 months. After 30 years of research, advances in imaging, chemotherapy, radiation, surgical technique, 15 months. The number has not moved. And neurosurgeons know this. They have always known this. They operate anyway. Because 15 months with a debulked tumor looks different than 15 months without. Not longer. Different. The patient who has the surgery spends more of that time speaking in full sentences. knowing their children's names, driving, finishing things they started. The surgeon does not give them more time. They give them more of themselves. In the time that remains. That is the work. Third year of attending. A 50-year-old man. Ruptured aneurysm. Grade 4. The odds are poor and you tell the family so. Honestly. You operate 6 hours and 40 minutes. He does not make it. Time of death. 3:41 a.m. You walk out of the OR. You put your back against the wall of a hospital hallway. You look at the Casio. 3:44 a.m. You stay there for 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Then you scrub for the next case. Because there is a next case. There is always a next case. And the person in the next case is not interested in what the last case cost you. They are interested in the quality of your hands right now. That is not a criticism. That is the deal. You signed it a long time ago. Your daughter is 4 years old. She does not understand what you do. She knows you smell like hospital when you come home late, which is most nights. She knows you are there on Sunday mornings, without exception, because Sunday morning is the one thing you decided the job does not get. You made that arithmetic. Different families make different math. Yours still works. The Casio on your left wrist was your father's. He is 71 years old. He does not fully understand what you do. He has never been inside an operating room. He has never seen the inside of a skull. He gave you a $20 watch the summer before you left for college and said it keeps good time. And that was the entirety of what he knew to give you. It was enough. 2 battery changes. 19 years. Every exam and every call and every surgery and every February morning and every parking garage at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. The watch does not know what you did with the time. It only knows that it kept going. So did you. That's level 10. Somewhere right now, in a biology lecture, a freshman is writing down the mitochondria. He's going to go home tonight and tell someone he wants to be a neurosurgeon. They will pause before they respond, the way people pause when they're doing arithmetic, and then they'll say something encouraging because that is what people who love you do. He doesn't know about the cadaver or the MCAT or the $410 or the February morning. He doesn't know about the 8-year-old and her father's hands flat on the table. He doesn't know about 3:41 a.m. or what it feels like to stand in a hallway for exactly 3 minutes and 20 seconds and then go back in. He doesn't know that the brain has no pain receptors. That the most complex surgery in medicine is sometimes a conversation with an awake patient who is counting backward from 10. That the difference between saving a life and buying time is a distinction that will take him 19 years to stop finding troubling and start finding true. He'll find out. The same way everyone who has ever done this found out. One level at a time.